what's up? Welcome back to Roots and Refuge Farm. I'm putting together a lasagna because we're having dinner tonight with my friend Daniel and his family, and I'm gonna head out in the garden because I have to show you guys some things. But first I wanted to give you a chance to be a little fly on the wall for a family moment. Asher is getting ready to go to senior prom.
Can see how this is gonna go tonight.
All right, one more twirl. Okay. All right, look at this cute couple getting ready to go to prom. Y'all look amazing. This is Yaz, Asher's lady friend. I hope y'all have such a good night. You look amazing. I can't believe how well y'all coordinated. Down to your hair. You dyed your hair for this. That's commitment, Asher. I hope you appreciate it.
I do. I very much do.
Oh, aren't they beautiful? My sweet little baby angel and his lovely lady. So sweet. So I've got about an hour and a half before Daniel and his family get here. And I've already got dinner in the oven, which means I get some garden time in. And today I did something which is not gonna surprise anybody. Bought some plants. I've been completely bewildered by the fact that this garden season has been so vastly different from the last couple that we've had here. We moved here in the summer of 2021. So we had spring of 22 and 23 and 24. So we've had 3 seasons here. This is our 4th season. The last few years, it has frozen again in mid to late April. Now, granted, it could completely come back and prove everybody wrong that's told me. But I've talked to several people who are like born and raised in this area that have told me that this is what spring is usually like. That usually the last frost date is, you know, now-ish. Now, I did not plan for now-ish to be the last frost. I planned for it to be like mid to late April, which is what it's been the last few years, which is what it was where I lived in Arkansas. So I typically start my seeds mid-February. They're ready to go out mid-April, and I'm on track for that. All my seedlings that I started are not large enough to go out, but I decided that since everybody else was so gung-ho and raring to go, that I would buy some plants to go ahead and put out. I am taking a risk. I mean, I still feel risky. I'm not telling everybody like, hey, go plant your whole garden. But, you know, sometimes when you can gamble and get tomatoes weeks sooner, you just have to choose whether you're willing to do that. I went over to a store that I like to go to locally and bought some plants. I got a few sweet potato vines, like decorative, that I was gonna put in the garden. I just wanted them to start growing sooner because they get absolutely wild and crazy, and I wanted to give them a head start. I also bought this African blue basil that I really didn't need because I already started like literally 8 different types of basils, but I didn't start African blue. So I got this guy, and I got this flat of plants, and I unloaded all of this right here. Just my kids were helping me. I'm gonna go through here. I bought several types of like dwarf tomato plants, like this little patio choice yellow, like a really small cherry tomato. There's a place in Columbia called Seven Oaks Plant Shop if you're local, and they get these in, and I can't remember exactly how much. I know what my total was, but I bought a bunch of bags of soil. I think these were like $1.80 each or something like that, or you could get like a $10 discount if you bought the whole flat. I spent quite a bit more, but I bought 8 bags of soil too. So I also got this little patio tomato. I did start some dwarf varieties. I'm gonna take these, set them out, because I have a green stalk I'm gonna set up right here. I just don't think that I'm gonna have time to do that today, but I bought these to put in the green stalk. I also got a red one of these. If you are looking for container varieties of tomatoes, if it says patio on it, or obviously if it says dwarf or mini, those are the kinds that you are gonna have the best success with in containers. Of course, you can grow an indeterminate tomato in containers. I just think you will have better success for the more compact varieties. I think I only bought 5 of these. Oh no, I got 6. I've got this tray in here. These are kales And this is some lettuce. I thought I would throw some lettuce in the green stalk, even though it's going to be a little smaller. And then these are slow bolt Napa cabbages, which I'm going to try to put those in the high tunnel and maybe squeak out a little more time. I think it's probably like this a lot of places, but here in South Carolina, it's just I can end up with a season that we have kind of like a cool spring, and I can grow brassicas a lot longer and get a better harvest. Sometimes we'll have warmer times, or you know, it depends on how things go, and you can't really predict it. So I just try to sow a little bit of everything. That way I have success one way or another. I'm gonna leave these in this tray just so they have some water underneath. I'm not even closing up my little greenhouse right now, or my big greenhouse for that matter. Just after we're past, at least on the 10-day forecast, I am past my nighttime temperatures requiring the greenhouses to be closed for the health of the plants inside, even the peppers. Like, it's warm enough at night. After night before last was like our last cold night in the forecast currently. Look at my gentleman coming to help me. Y'all been playing basketball with Daddy?
What's this?
Some tomato plants. I looked for a spider plant for you. I didn't find one. Also, there's some tomatillos there and some eggplants.
Tomatillos.
Oh, the garden where I have spent so much of my time this week, and I am not complaining about that at all. I've planted quite a few things out here, but I'm obviously nowhere near done. We're still steadily amending beds. But I've got beets in here. These are just little beets I started. I don't even know if you can see them. Some zinnias. I planted seeds. I was trying to get quite a few things planted because we've got a couple of days of rain coming. The garden center today was hopping. It was so busy. I'm talking like it was hard to get in and out of the parking lot. It's a very small place, but still it was very busy. I actually saw a couple different viewers there, so hi if I saw you today. Hello again. People ask me all the time, do you get stopped in public much, you know, having a big YouTube channel? And in most places, no. In most places I just completely average, like normal, whatever, don't get recognized. In garden centers and Costco, it's pretty much a guarantee in those two places. Apparently that's where my people are, is garden centers and Costco. Oh, another thing that I bought today, which I do not normally buy these started because I just direct sow them, and I actually had started to tuck a couple of seeds in, but I bought just a few squash plants, some zucchini squash. I got a yellow zucchini, yellow crookneck, and like a black beauty zucchini. Squash plants don't love being transplanted. When I'm looking for an eggplant transplant, I want to buy like the biggest one that they have because I want to get the biggest head start. I don't necessarily want to see fruit setting on any plants that I'm buying. Sometimes it's inevitable, like these tomatillos that I bought here. They've got some flowers set. I'm going to pick those off when I plant them because I want my plant to focus on setting roots instead of setting fruit. But with the eggplant, I want as big of a head start as possible. If I'm buying squash or cucumbers or melons, I don't really buy cucumbers or melons, and they had some today, but I just didn't buy them. I'd already put a bunch of seeds in yesterday, so I'll just be a little more patient and wait. But I'm actually going to buy the smaller ones because while this is about, in nice weather, this is about a 9-day head start probably, maybe 7. So I figured, you know, for $1.80 each, I'll take an 8-day head start, 7 to 9 days. Also, we have a lot of roly-polies, so sometimes I have to re-sow seedlings in order to really get them established. So I figured, you know, we'll go ahead and put these in. That's good. But I don't want these to be really big because squash do not like being transplanted. I did an experiment once where I took some kind of established-ish transplants. They were bigger than this, and I sowed them, and I sowed seeds alongside, and the direct sowed seeds actually ended up catching up to the other ones and producing as much. So I didn't really gain a lot. But I figured this year I would try it just because I wasn't anticipating such a warm spring, and but I did specifically find the smallest seedlings that they had. I had my eggplants here last year also, and I liked it, so we're gonna stick with that. I purposefully did not start any eggplants from seed this year just because I think to really get them like a really good established size before it's time to plant them out, I would need to start them like at least 5 or 6 weeks before I start everything else. That is in an unheated greenhouse. And I have found that with flea beetles being kind of a prevalent thing, they do better if I will just buy nice established hardened off plants when it's time to plant out. I bought, it's like classic, just their plain basic eggplant, like kind of what you see at the store. No, I got 2 of those. Toby was helping me, so I'm not 100, I may have some surprises in here. I also got 2 Black Beauty. It's very similar. These get a little bit more like round on the bottom shaped. I also got one called Hansel, which this is an F1 hybrid. They have several that are like fairy tale, and I think as a spinoff from that, they have Hansel and Gretel. And Hansel is the long purple one, and then Gretel is the long white one. And I got Hansel and Gretel. This year, my goal in my garden is to just be able to eat fresh. Come out, pick daily, and make things from my garden daily. And I wanted to plant this eggplant bed. This is probably the only eggplants I will. And I will make lots of baba ganoush eggplant dip. I like roasting eggplant. I will occasionally do eggplant parmesan, which is where you bread it and fry it, but I don't do a lot of fried food. And something I found really way too late in the season last year, I got a little bit on a kick with this, where you take those long skinny eggplants and you cut them in half and brush them with tahini, which is what you make baba ganoush with. It's sesame seed paste, or like butter. It's also what you make hummus with chickpeas and tahini. But you brush them with oil, grill them, and then brush them with tahini, excuse me. And like some salt, a little bit of garlic powder, so good. So when I saw the Hansel and Gretel eggplants today, I was like, I bet those would really be awesome in that preparation. There's Gretel, I missed one. There we go. Like we have, tomorrow's really overcast, and then we have a good deal of rain over the next couple of days. And then of course today I went plant shopping. Of course these are hardened off, which I purchased. They're already hardened off. But if I can put them out on an evening like this, where they'll, they're not gonna have to endure like a really hot day, and then they're gonna have a couple of days of rain and overcast, that is ideal for putting plants out. Obviously, if you don't have that and you've just got to plant them out in the middle of the day and it's hot, just make sure you water them really well. But ideally, doing it when you're gonna have a little bit of overcast, where they're going to have plenty of moisture, it's just gonna help those plants have a little less transplant shock. I also want to make sure that I get these in the ground. We don't have all the beds amended yet, so I'm kind of just planting where I've got compost already laid down. Before planting each season, I like to just lay down a couple of inches of compost. That's going to feed that soil and just bring some life back to it. I already put some small like cantaloupe type melons on this trellis right here, and I'm going to put the squash kind of along this side towards the edge. Of course they're going to get really big, but that melon is not going to have any problem going up. I've got some nasturtiums on the end, and I have blue butterfly peas that come up in that corner. They drop seeds and they come up every year. I've got extra seeds if I need to sow them in there, but I don't think I will, so I'm going to go right down here with my squash. Now you may notice that some of these containers of squash have more than one plant in them. If you are looking for peppers or tomatoes, or you're buying plants and they have more than one plant in them, in many cases you can take those, separate them, tear the roots apart, plant them separate, voila, you just got a twofer. In the case of these squash, I'm actually going to still plant these close together. So I'm just going to pull this cell out, disturb the roots as little as possible and plant with these two close together. Two squash plants, these are bush type squash, and you know, most summer squashes that you grow are bush varieties. They're not going to vine anywhere. These will grow close together. They'll still produce really well. The reason I don't want to cut these apart is, again, they really don't like their roots being disturbed. You probably could do it and they would probably be okay, but again, there's going to be that thing of like, if they get really fussy, you didn't really get a head start versus just direct sowing. So I'm just going to sow them close together. All of these had at least 2 in. All the ones that there were to choose from had 2 in, so that's what I grabbed. I do sometimes, like, just even whenever I'm sowing squash, I'll sow 2 seeds close together and they grow just fine that close. So on these last 2 here, there were actually 3 per pot, and I just broke 2 of those off at the surface. I didn't pull the roots away because I don't want to mess with their roots. But I don't like to grow more than 2 plants right near each other because I think they end up vying for nutrients a little more than I like, and they tend to get sick more frequently. So 2 close together is fine. 3's a crowd, and try to leave the roots alone. Look at my strawberries coming back. My green stalk starting to set some blossoms, looking happy. I am gonna give these guys a little bit of fertilizer and start fertilizing them every couple of weeks. Neptune's Harvest has like an organic fish emulsion fertilizer that I like to mix in the water and put in my green stalks. And I do it just every couple weeks, and it keeps everybody happy. All right, tomatillos. Sadly, one of these got bent over real bad in my car, but I'm gonna plant it anyway for 2 reasons. One, it's not like broken off, so it could potentially heal. Secondly, there are still leaves underneath it, and as you can see here, there's just a little bit of a stem coming up. I'm not 100% sure that it would branch off another main leader that low, but I'm gonna give it a shot. I'll get nothing from it if I put it in the trash. Also, with tomatillos, you have to have 2 tomatillos or you won't get fruit. I bought 3. I always get 3 if I'm ever buying tomatillos, and I've got some started in the greenhouse, so it probably would have been fine. I always buy 3 for this exact reason, because if you're like, oh, I need 2, and you get home and 1 broke off in your car, well, then you're in trouble. So I always get 3 tomatillos. I do have some of these started. I wonder if I could like support this guy somehow. Probably wouldn't hurt to plant it deep the way you do tomatoes. It's not going to grow extra roots necessarily, but it will at least give it a little bit of extra support. We'll see. Worst that can happen is it dies, but we give up on stuff too soon, don't you think? Should at least just try. If you've never grown tomatillos, they're like a relative of tomatoes. Also called husk tomatoes. They have like the little husk around them. They're very popular in like Mexican food and stuff like that, and it's what you use to make like salsa verde with tomatillos. Also, I've got a really good like enchilada sauce recipe with tomatillos. Similar spacing here, 2 tomatoes. You know, I usually do about 20 inches apart, 18 to 20 inches apart. They're going to grow really big and kind of canopy out and get all entwined with one another. But we want that since they need each other to pollinate. Oh, I meant to leave this down by the little greenhouse. I've got my beds I'm going to start putting together down there. This is pineapple sage. This smells so good. It gets really big and beautiful and puts up these like pink spikes. This is one of my favorite little garden plants each year. It's a great herb, but it's also just great for the pollinators and very enjoyable and beautiful. And the herb itself is really nice on like fish or chicken. I'm going to put this down in the herb garden by my house. I should have probably left both of those down there. The basil could stay down there too. And then here are the tomatoes that I bought. I did a video talking about how I was like heavily cutting back on the number of tomatoes that I started, and I did. I ended up starting something like 22 or 3 varieties after all my little additions after the fact, and they're all doing well. I mean, they're like this big, but There were a handful that it just didn't have seeds for, and I figured that I would probably end up grabbing. Like for instance, Cherokee Purple. This has been like a go-to in my garden for a very long time, and I just didn't have any seeds saved. So I grabbed those. This is Cherokee Chocolate. I've never heard of this, but it looks kind of like Cherokee Purple, but more dark, like umami-ish, savory. This one is called Cherokee Carbon, and actually, if you've been watching for a while, a few years ago I had issues with soil, and then in our greenhouse, I put all my tomatoes in our greenhouse, or most of them, and they all were killed from gray zone contamination of my soil. And my hairdresser gave me a Cherokee Carbon plant. I planted it in a little raised bed in front of my house, and that year that was pretty much the only like fresh tomatoes that I had to eat that didn't come from somewhere else, and they grew really, really well. But I never did like find seeds for them. It's listed as an heirloom, so I saw this plant today and I was like, oh yeah, I totally want to grow that, and I want to isolate seeds from this, because since it is listed as an heirloom, that means that these seeds are stabilized. If I isolate them, I can save seeds from that, and I can have it in the future. Also grabbed pineapple. That was one that didn't make it on my list, and Mr. Stripey. That, frankly, like, I really do love them, and though I didn't start any seeds for them and they didn't make it on my favorites list, I thought about it after the fact and I was like, oh, but I didn't have seeds, so I just waited. I saw those, grabbed them. I got this one called Carolina Gold, which it says it's a determinate of golden yellow, like medium-sized tomatoes. I love my home. I love the Carolinas. That's literally the only reason I got that. Sweet Million. This was on my list of things to start, but it never came up. I think my seeds were just kind of old, and so when I saw this, I just got one plant of this. And this one is called Midnight Snack. It looks a lot like Dancing with Smurfs. It's like a heavily purple shouldered. Now this may be terribly similar to the wild boar berries that I did start, but it'll be okay. I mean, like, that's one of my favorite cherry tomatoes, so I end up with gobs of them. It won't be a big problem. So yeah, I was initially only going to get the tomatoes that were for the green stalk, and I was getting the other plants, but I was like, but I get a discount if I buy. Oh dang, I broke the main leader off that one. That's okay. It'll get some armpits that'll grow out. I just need to make sure I remember that. But yeah, I'm weak. What can I say? I'm weak when it comes to buying plants. I'm not going to plant these right now because I have dinner guests coming in a little while, and in order to plant those, that's just going to be a little more involved. I also have to make some decisions about where I'm planting all of my tomatoes this year. I'm planning on putting many of them down here, but I'm not sure. Last year, the things in the spring in this bed just needed a little help, and they just didn't thrive. So I planted beans here in the second half of last season and cut them off at the soil because beans are nitrogen fixers, and I knew that would help the soil a little bit. But I'm not 100% sure if I want to try to put tomatoes here, if I want to do beans again for that reason. I'm still on the fence. This bed is where I've done cherry tomatoes for the last few years, and they've done really well. I really like having my snacky things right here by where I like snacks, but I don't know for sure. And then this bed, I did beans on this in the fall also and cut them off. So I'm probably going to put some tomatoes here. Plus I already have this bed amended, so probably I will stick those plants in the soil here tomorrow morning. I did plant so many things out here, and some of them you can see because I moved out some really little seedlings. Like these are some little basil transplants. I mean, they're tiny, but with the weather being so favorable, I think they're going to do just fine. And I did a lot of seeds in the ground. So like here are some cucumbers. I put borage in right here. I planted a good deal of radishes out here. I didn't want to do just a ton because I didn't need them all coming on at the same time. What did I put here? I think silver slicer. Yeah, silver slicer cucumbers on this. There's radishes all right here. It's really hard for me not to just go crazy and plant the entire garden all at the same time. But if I'm trying to keep fresh eating in mind, I don't want everything coming on at once. Like for instance, I planted like 40 radish seeds in one little area. Well, let's say I'm gonna harvest those one evening for dinner. We could probably eat 40 radishes for dinner if I was quartering them and roasting them which by the way, roasting radishes like is a total game changer. It mellows them out a lot, makes them taste a lot more like a potato. But like, I don't need 40 radishes every day, so I need to wait a handful of days. I did sow a few different varieties that I knew would come on in different times. See, my tomatoes are still just little guys, but they'll be just right whenever I want to put them out mid-April. I started whole trays of flowers to plant out later. And like this whole tray is rutabagas. So my plan is with my succession sowing and my fresh eating to use indoor starting quite a lot to be able to transplant things out in spaces that are opening up. Someone asked me the other day about me top watering my plants and said that they've heard a lot that you should bottom water. You'll notice I have bottom water trays underneath all of my plants, which keep them from drying out. But when they're all small, I still do top water, especially in this greenhouse that gets really warm during the day, because that keeps the top layer of the soil from drying out. Once the plants are like this size, you can see they've got the roots that are going all the way down, in which case, yes, I keep water in the bottom here. I'll still give them a little spray on top, especially where I know I have some small little seedlings. When the seedlings are super small and the roots don't reach out and down into the bottom tray, when that top inch of soil starts drying out, it can be really detrimental. So I top water until I don't need to anymore, and then yes, I exclusively bottom water. I will tell you, like today, going to the garden center, it was so nice. It was like just so full of people with full carts and excited about gardening. I made the grievous mistake of going while hungry. I really just, it's like how you can't grocery shop while hungry. I should not start seeds while I'm hungry, and I should not start plants while I'm hungry. It might not have been so detrimental at an earlier point in my life when I wasn't as familiar with gardening stuff, but now I just know what all these things taste like. And so when I'm hungry and I'm like thinking about Mr. Stripey tomatoes, and I'm like, well, yeah, I want to eat that. And so I just buy it. Never mind the fact that I'm 60 days away from eating it. That logic does not register while I am at the garden store. Now here are my many types of basil. They're not even up yet. I have others. I mean, here's some other kinds of basil. But these are like the cinnamon basil, the lettuce leaf, lemon, Thai, towers basil, all this represents gallons and gallons and gallons of tea that we'll be enjoying in my home throughout the rest of this year. Isn't that incredible? Just this one little tray. Doesn't look like anything right now, but we're gonna love it. I think that's the thing that makes me the most giddy about like garden season, is just how much possibility. I joke about, oh, I shouldn't do this while I'm hungry, but the reason why is because I fully understand, and it's not just an idea for me, how delicious and valuable and worthwhile and rewarding cultivating these things is going to be. I'm using I've got this Neptune's Harvest crab and lobster shell, which is like a fertilizer. I'm gonna mix this into my tomato and pepper beds. Another reason why I'm not really ready to plant tomatoes yet. I just love, oh, look, my microgreens are starting to come up. Oh, I don't know if I should take it off yet or if I should give them a little bit longer. I'm going to take it off. See if these are, here's my other fertilizer from Neptune's Harvest I was telling you all about. These are kale. I got a few popping up. I'm going to take this off tomorrow. There's just a few. So you weigh this top down to kind of give it that feeling of being underground. Yeah, I got to set an alarm. I'll come out here in the morning. But these I'm going to leave off. Yay! See, this is what I'm talking about. It's just like, it's so exciting there's so much promise. And you know what I know now that I've seen this, you know what hope I have, is that probably in about 7 to 9 days, I'm going to be eating some lovely microgreens on some fried eggs with roasted sweet potatoes, maybe a little bacon, and it's gonna be great. And I'm looking forward to that. Thank you guys for hanging out with me today on this little evening of early garden season. I bless you. Until next time.